Hi, this is my presentation on the topic overharvesting of marine organisms. I'm mainly going to focus on the overharvesting in the fishing industry. So, what is overharvesting? It is the continuous exploitation of a natural resource. Example, excessive fishing of an aquatic organism. The World Wildlife Fund defines overfishing as the process which occurs when more fish are caught than the population can replace through natural reproduction. Gathering as many fish as possible may seem like a profitable practice, but overfishing has serious consequences. The results not only affect the balance of life in the oceans, but also the social and economic well being of the coastal communities who depend on fish for their way of life. With oceans taking up over 70% of the earth, sea creatures and the overall health of marine life is essential for sustaining life elsewhere on the planet. But overfishing is having drastic effect on the future of both ocean and land dwellers. In recent times, the number of overfished stocks globally has tripled in half a century, and today, one third of the world's assessed fisheries are currently pushed beyond their biological limits, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Overfishing is closely tied to bycatch, the capture of unwanted sea life while fishing for a different species. This too is a serious marine threat that causes the needless loss of billions of fish, along with hundreds of thousands of sea turtles. The damage done by overfishing goes beyond the marine environment. Billions of people rely on fish for protein, and fishing is the principal livelihood for millions of people around the world. These images show the way in which fish are caught in large amounts with nets, big nets. There are many causes of overfishing. The first and foremost cause is illegal fishing. Systematic overfishing is only made worse by illegal catches and trade. In fact, some of the worst ocean impacts are caused by pervasive illegal fishing, which is estimated at up to 30% of catch or more for high value species. Experts estimate illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing nets criminals up to $36.4 billion each year. These illegal catches move through opaque supply chains due to a lack of systems to track fish from catch to consumer, something called traceability. Next is subsidies. Subsidies, or the support provided to the fishing industry to offset the cost of doing business, are another key driver of overfishing. Subsidies can lead to overcapacity of fishing vessels and skewing of production costs, so that fishing operations continue when they would otherwise not make economic sense. And then, in international waters, there are little to no rules regarding fishing practical practices, which means fishing fleets can bypass areas that do have regulations. Lastly, there are also problems with customs and importation, where the provenance of fish is not questioned, leading to wrong practices such as calling one kind of a fish something else. In the following images, we can look at the fishes caught in net and being transported. Then in the right image, the fishes are being sold at a large scale market. Moving on to the effects of overfishing. One of the most important effects is degraded ecosystems. Overfishing can impact entire ecosystem. It can change the size of fish remaining as well as how they reproduce and the speed at which they mature. When too many fish are taken out of the ocean, it creates an imbalance that can erode the food web and lead to a loss of other important marine life, including vulnerable species like sea turtles and corals. Next, it also decreases food and the economic security. Demand for fish continues to increase around the world, and that means more businesses and jobs are dependent on dwindling stocks. Fish ranks as one of the most highly traded food commodities and fuels a $362 billion global industry. Millions of people in largely developing coastal communities depend on the fishing industry for their livelihood, and half the world's population relies on fish as a major source of protein. When fish disappear, so do jobs and coastal economies. High demand for seafood continues to drive overexploitation and environmental degradation. It also has a major effect on the wildlife. Decades of destructive fishing has resulted in the steep decline of key fish stocks such as bluefin tuna and grand band cod, as well as collateral impacts on other marine life. Hundreds of thousands of marine mammals, seabirds, and sea turtles are captured each year, alongside tens of millions of sharks. Many of these species are endangered and protected, while some, such as the eastern Pacific leatherback turtle and the Maui dolphin, are on the brink of extinction. Overfishing also removes the essential predators. For example, shark and tuna are particularly susceptible to overfishing, and when they are removed from the areas they live in, this means the sea creatures further down the food chain are negatively impacted. Populations can grow larger, and the role that these larger creatures play, from what they eat to how their bodies decompose, mean potentially fatal effects for ocean ecosystems. Coral reef health is also majorly affected. With a large amount of smaller marine creatures come great damage to coral reefs and other elements of the ocean's ecosystem. Reefs are reefs are essential to ocean life, and once they are harmed, it is hard to repair the damage, if at all. The growth of algae in controlled amounts is essential to help marine life thrive. But if it is allowed to grow at will, it can impact fish, reefs, and more, leading to serious destruction. Now we'll look at two images from before and after. Here, with high demand and fewer fish, fishermen use high-tech sonar to track large schools of fish. From there, they sometimes let out a giant net called a trawling net to catch fish. Trawling nets are so big you could fit 13 jumbo jets inside one. They're dragged along the bottom of the ocean at high speeds, catching hundreds of tons of fishes. So, how can we prevent overfishing? WWF works to end overfishing by addressing root causes and impacts at the local and commercial levels. Through collaboration with a variety of partners, it strives to transform fishing to reduce environmental impact and maintain vital sources of food and livelihoods for years to come. One of the most important steps is to influence the global market. The US imports 90% of its seafood, making it the largest single country importer of fish. Working with the biggest buyers, traders, and sellers of seafood leverages the purchasing power of the private sector to catalyze improvements in fishing practices. The next step is to end the illegal fishing. WWF works to stop criminals from stealing from legal fisheries, which renders good management much less effective. Together with partners worldwide, it aims to close borders in the major seafood importing countries to illegally and unsustainably harvested seafood through government regulatory and voluntary private sector actions. Addressing fishing subsidies is also very important. Some of the world's richest nations continue to pay billions to keep lagging fishing industry afloat through fishing subsidies. This scale of subsidization is a huge incentive to expand fishing fleets and overfish. The creation and management of well-designed marine protected areas around the world helps protect important fish species from the Arctic to the tropics. Working with governments on this issue is also very important, as the lack of regulations and specific policy, and the fact that fishing has been an industry tied to the human history of humans and civilization. Many groups like the World Wildlife Fund are helping countries learn to prepare adequate and effective management protocols. Lastly, it is also very important to help developing countries because fishing is a crucial industry in many poor and developing nations. Conservation efforts are focused on helping these areas set up procedures to ensure sustainability in the long run. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you.